can't think of an opening zinger. Strike. Warrior Met coal miners in Brookwood, Alabama went on strike April 1st, 2021. What's happening? In 2015, Walter Energy, the company that used to own the mines, went bankrupt. Warrior Met bought Walter Energy in 2016. At the 2016 contract negotiations, the workers agreed to take implied temporary cuts in pay, retirement benefits, and health care, with the understanding that all cuts would be reversed once Warrior Met became solvent again. Well, they're solvent again.
Pale but solvent.
And instead of upholding their end of the bargain, Warrior Met chose to give only a little of the benefits and payback. Needless to say, the workers were not happy and took to the picket line with the United Mine Workers of America Union, or UMWA. What are their goals? Warrior Met coal miners want to return their benefits and pay back to what they were before the 2016 contract, a just transition process, better environmental and safety regulations, and removal of the four strikes and you're out attendance system. Workers feel like they were lied to and taken advantage of. The monetary value of the cut in benefits and pay is $1.1 billion. The workers want $1.1 billion. One of the most important benefits the workers lost was health insurance. The company provided health insurance pre-2016 used to cover 100% of the healthcare costs, but now only covers 80% with a $1,500 premium. That means the copays for seeing an in-network family doctor went from $12 to $250, which is heckin' expensive, especially for coal miners. You might have heard of black lung disease, or coal workers' pneumoconiosis, or CWP. CWP is caused by continued exposure to coal dust, scarring the lungs and impairing the worker's ability to breathe. There is no cure, and it requires extensive health treatment to manage symptoms, from medication, supplemental oxygen, to lung transplants. But if those methods aren't effective, then CWP can lead to death. 16% of coal workers have CWP, but the number is on the rise since funding was cut to OSHA and parts of the coal industry were deregulated. Because deregulation is just so good for business and economies. Ignore the dying workers in the corner. The numbers could also be due to changes in mining technology. Coal mining is dangerous work. Coal miners are also at an increased risk of injuries due to explosions and equipment malfunctions. Point blank, they need health insurance. Workers are forced to take mandatory overtime, but no longer receive the extra pay, twice the pay during the week and 3 times the pay on the weekend. They're only making about some $20 an hour, and they're spending 6 weeks, sometimes 7, underground, 12 hours a day. Their bodies are broken, their lungs are all messed up, said Kim Kelly, an independent reporter who has been covering the strike. Another benefit coal miners desperately need are retirement benefits. CWP onset is very slow, so it's difficult to catch until it's too late. Often, too late is when the workers are only 30 to 40 years old. That's ridiculously young to retire. Once CWP progresses too far, the workers can't breathe without incredible difficulty. And if you can't breathe, you can't really work, so you have to retire. So coal miners dedicate their lives to an extremely dangerous job where there can be a random explosion taking a limb or a progressive lung disease that slowly takes away their ability to breathe. Also, the miners are regularly exposed to extreme noise, heat, and cold. Underground mines are incredibly inhospitable. If humans were meant to mine, we would have been born with tiny pickaxes. You would have to be a special kind of evil to deny retirement benefits to people who endanger their body for your profit. Which, don't worry, Warrior Met is. And all of this is made even worse by the lower pay. Maybe, maybe, maybe if the pay went back up to $27 to $30 an hour, then cuts to healthcare and loss of retirement benefits wouldn't be too bad. But when you add $1,500 monthly premiums and no money for retirement to lower pay, then the workers are pretty much fucked. Money is needed to live. And when you live in a coal town, the main source of income for nearly everyone comes from the mines. Lowering pay impoverishes the whole town. Money from the mines go to transportation, schools, government, housing, businesses, everything. Taking $1.1 billion from Brookwood should be a fucking crime. But of course it's not, because capitalism. And this is why company towns are a bad idea.
It's a bad idea, me and you.
Yeah, totally agree.
It's a bad idea, me and you. I need a bad idea. I need a bad idea. Just one. Heart keep racing. Let's make mistakes. Let us say so. Watch the make first was already pretty bad. This secret is safe. No reason to throw it away. When there's love to be had, hold me tight. As I tell myself that you might make sense and make good what has been just so bad. Let's see this through. It's a bad idea. Me and you.
The workers also want better environmental and safety regulations. Coal mines have a bit of a problem with pollution, and in Brookwood's case, the waters around the mine literally turned black. I'm sure it's fine. The fish are fine. They love polluted water. It tastes like a charcoal smoothie. In 2001, a mine explosion killed 13 workers. And on the less dramatic side of things, better safety regulations mean less exposure to coal and silica dust and less people suffering from CWP, which I think is a good thing. Better regulations save lives. There's also the 4 strikes and you're out policy, where if a worker is absent for any reason, whether it's a heart attack or flu, 4 times, then they're done. There are no more excused absences, which, that just sounds like a good way to spread COVID. One complication that can't be escaped in any conversation about coal mining is climate change. And the workers are deathly aware of climate change. That's why they want a just transition process. A just transition process is a plan for how a company will transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. The UMWA's plan for a just transition include retraining workers, federal aid for education and to support workers while transitioning, and carbon capture and storage technology. All good things. Though allow me to tangent for a moment about the cons of carbon capture. So, carbon capture does work. You can capture CO2 from the air and inject it into the earth, but there are a few problems. 1. It's temporary. As the earth continues to heat up, the carbon will be re-released into the atmosphere. You've got maybe 1 to 2 years. 2. The process of carbon capture uses a lot of water, and water is kind of scarce. 3. Fossil fuel companies use carbon capture as a smokescreen for expanding their fossil fuel infrastructure. So if a company wants to clean up their image, like ExxonMobil, they can say, look, see, we've got carbon capture technology. Of course we care about climate change. Oh, those new pipelines? Look over there, carbon capture. It's really obvious when you see that the biggest pushers for carbon capture are large oil companies. The strike has not been going well. The UMWA has reported the picketing miners frequently being attacked by Warrior Met employees, police, and Warrior Met's private security force. Vans carrying the scabs have rammed the picketing line 3 times. One of the workers that was injured in the attack, Greg Pinkleton, said, "But I'm not going to give up, because that's what they want. That's part of their agenda, to scare us off or physically and mentally make us to where we don't want to fight anymore." And I grew up in the Union. I know my dad and them picketed back in the 80s, and it was a whole lot worse than what is going on now. I'm not going to, but if I was to give up this spot, my dad would probably come back to haunt me. In response to these frequent attacks, the picketing workers have defended themselves and filed police reports. The Jefferson County Sheriff Office claims that they haven't received any reports. They, however, did find time to arrest several of the miners for aggravated assault. And because of violence from picketing workers, Warrior Met got a restraining order against the workers. The company that hired a private security force is scared of a handful of workers. Sure. The restraining order means the picketing workers have to stay 300 yards away from the mine openings and can only have 6 workers at a time, though an appeal later allowed them to have 10. It is not hyperbolic to say that the picketing workers are in danger. The mine openings are out in the middle of nowhere, far from the town, with shitty cell service. The private security forces and the police constantly spy on the workers. The only reason there is proof of the car attacks is because the UMWA started flying drones to try and protect themselves. They are isolated and vulnerable. So a new tactic was needed. July 28th, 2021, the UMWA went to New York City to picket in front of BlackRock, the investing firm that owns most of the Warrior Met stocks. And since the BlackRock CEO, Larry Fink, has made a big show about caring about the environment, UMWA hoped to expose his hypocrisy and get him to stop backing Warrior Met. If the workers could get BlackRock to divest, that would be a huge get and destroy Warrior Met. Unfortunately, most of BlackRock investments are through index funds and another concern is that Warrior Met is using undertrained or even untrained workers. Coal mining is insanely dangerous, even with highly trained workers. To put untrained workers in the mine is just begging for a horrible tragedy. Okay. The workers just need to hold out for a little bit longer. So even though the 2 mines going on strike have cost Warrior Met $16.2 million, there are other factors that have increased Warrior Met's profits. Warrior Met mines coal for steel manufacturing. And right now, Australia and China are having a bit of a tiff. In December 2020, after insinuating that the Chinese government was directly responsible for the coronavirus, China did not like this and placed tariffs and some unofficial bans on imports from Australia. And one of those bans included coal for steel manufacturing. China used to get almost all of its coal from Australia, but now Warrior Met is ready to fill that void. and that has enabled Warrior Met to increase the price of their coal. For the moment, with the extra demand from Chinese steel plants, two mines being closed isn't really hitting Warrior Met's bottom line. In fact, Warrior Met is threatening to close one of the mines if the strike continues. But a trade war won't last forever. Once Australia and China mend their relationship, the increased demand and the ability for Warrior Met to artificially raise their prices disappear. Now, I'm not in economics, so I can't tell you how long it will take for this trade war to end, but it will, and the price of coal will reset, meaning that the two closed mines will cost Warrior Met a heck of a lot more. How do we support the workers? Share and donate, links below. The UMWA is lucky enough to have a heckin' large established union, so that the UMWA can give striking workers $700 every 2 weeks. It's not a lot, but it's something. And of course, that's heckin' expensive. So please donate to the strike fund. The Warrior Met workers are also running a food/grocery pantry. Give them money or send them groceries. But a common theme I came across while researching this strike was how the picketing workers are violent and are attacking the poor, defenseless scabs, and that all the picketing workers should be locked up. It's very similar to the argument about looting during the Black Lives Matter protests. The restraining order is being used to invalidate the Warrior Met workers' struggles without looking into why there is a restraining order and how the police and private security are literally attacking the workers. It frustrates me so much to see someone uncritically take the mainstream narrative and talk on and on and on about how violent the workers are when they are defending themselves. Just, if you hear someone call the workers a violent, dangerous mob, fight that narrative. Well, I was stuck in bed and you were stuck here with me. But now you may go and live your lives. Go, be cute, keep gay, be crime. Bye!
Julie, do the thing.
Don't freak out. It's not real.